All right, everybody, good morning. Sunday, December 29th. We are here to preview. I mean, it's up there with the Pop-Tarts Bowl. It's the Dukes Mayo Bowl, formerly the Belk Bowl. And I got a little help from some friends. I got Pete B here. I got Sam Jesse here. So we're doing a little Too Deep Sons of Saturday crossover podcast. Start with you, Pete. How's it going? What's new? I know we're kind of in that in between Christmas and New Year's drunk vortex space right now.
We are, man. And I was telling Ed yesterday, because we recorded Hokey Hoops yesterday, I've been eating nothing but bad food and candy and drinking beer every night. I know you've been drinking a little bit, Billy. We've been talking about it on the threads, but I love this time of year, and it's not going to get cleaned up until after the bowl. Like until I get back from Charlotte, which I'm going to the game, and I'm excited because you guys are going to be down there. I'm not going to be drinking any less or eating any less until I get back on that Sunday.
Yeah, Sam, it's so tough because
you, and also I know you guys got the chapter cheers too, so make sure you get that.
We got to do cheers.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd also say like with the playoff games as well. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna drink for the playoff games. It's New Year's Eve, we got a game. New Year's Day, we got a game, and then we have like multiple weeks after that. So it feels like the holiday season has really like stretched out this year.
Mm-hmm.
It does. Why don't you give us that cheers?
I'll give it. You know what, guys? It's been a tough year for Virginia Tech football. Like, it's been really tough. I'm going to cheers to the fact that we're even having this podcast to go to a bowl game. Because you know what? For a bit there, it didn't look like it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So cheers to actually having this and having a fun matchup too.
Yeah, it is.
Big Ten school, a big state school. Let's go.
Before we go around the room on what everybody's drinking, I do just want to say, we'd be having a podcast today if we didn't go to a bowl, because we'd be having several like WTF podcasts. It's not like we wouldn't be recording. So
yeah,
it's not thank God we made it to a bowl. It's like, well, at least we made it to a bowl. So,
yeah.
But
and it also depends on how you don't make it to the bowl. Because if we had lost to UVA to not go to the bowl, everyone would have been all torn up, and we would have done several emergency pods since then. I'm sure we'd be well past it.
What's everybody sipping on? So I actually, again, being stuck in this like vortex, I ran downstairs and just grabbed the first thing I could find. And I may have bought this a couple Christmases ago because I didn't buy it this year. It's Spencer Winter Warmer Amber Lager brewed with honey and spices. It's very good. Brewed and canned by the Spencer Brewery in Massachusetts. I like it. Good.
I've never heard of Spencer before, but the can, and it sounds like a typical holiday ale, but the can is phenomenal. It's got that that flannel on there.
Yeah,
I'm drinking the Ed Reed beer I got for Christmas. Forget who gave this to me. I think it was my brother. The GOAT IPA is what it's called. And I think a lot of people might consider Ed Reed the GOAT safety in the NFL, but it's got goats on it. It's got his face on it. It's Sunday, NFL Sunday, although the Ravens have been playing on weekdays for what I feel like 3 weeks now. All we're doing is getting national Ravens games all over the country, but it's pretty good. 6.5%, just a standard IPA, not a New England. I'm very much enjoying it at 11, 12 in the morning right now.
Yeah, I'm on the cold snap from Sam Adams. I don't have a lot of Sam Adams. But this was on sale at 7-Eleven. Or no, not 7-Eleven, Wawa. I was at a Wawa. It was on sale. I picked it up because I was like, I need to restock some. This is a like get drunk beer.
I love Cold Snap, actually. Cold Snap is like my personal favorite Sam Adams. I'm a big Cold Snap guy.
It's going to be a get the job done beer. It's super, super light. I could see like you use it to play in some games. If you're downing 6 or 7, this is the one to go to for Sam Adams. So it gets the job done. It's pretty basic.
A get drunk beer is like a beer around 5% or under that you just keep taking them down. That's your description.
Like I've already drank this much and we are 4 minutes in. And it's 11 a.m.
Hey, Pete, why don't you catch us up with some of the random notes around the program? Sure. I guess if you're looking program out, I do want to give a little bit of an applause here to Michael Vick for taking the Norfolk State job. Very, very cool. What reminded me of that is Ed Reed. Actually, a lot of people may have forgotten this. Ed Reed was coaching at Bethune-Cookman. We now see Deshaun Jackson is at Delaware State. I believe.
Yep.
So pretty awesome to see, pretty wild. I mean, I don't want to say much maligned, but a lot of people kind of looked at Deion Sanders a little bit sideways for a few years, and him having the success that he has over the last few years, I believe, has opened the opportunity up, and opened the idea up for this to happen. And I think it's really cool, and it's really good for the game.
I don't think these guys are necessarily going to match the success of Coach Prime. First of all, they don't have a stud son to be their quarterback. But I'm rooting for Mike Vick, obviously, and I think he has a better shot than Deshaun. It's funny that the duo from the Monday Night Massacre against the Redskins is now coaching at two different universities. But in terms of the Hokies notes that we need to catch up on, Sam and I discussed Matt Moore being hired as the O-line coach, and that's the only hire we have right now. We're still waiting on a DC. We're waiting on a strength and conditioning coach. But Billy, as a former offensive lineman, you see Matt Moore come in. He's got a lot of experience. He's coached at multiple power programs. He was the 2023 Broyles nominee because they had a great offensive line that year. We've seen the PFF grades that David Cunningham put out and how much better they are in pass blocking and other types of blocking just overall. How excited are you about this hire? Have you done a deep dive on him?
So I think when you said this last week or a couple of weeks ago, it hit the nail on the head for me. I wasn't expecting like some massive top 10 coach in the space, but I wanted to make sure that we brought somebody in who was, for lack of better terms, like an adult who has done this, who has done it at a high level and is doing it at a Power 5 program. And this was about as good as it could have possibly been. If you told me going into the coaching search, this is who we would end up with, I would be fired up about it. A lot of times you find yourself talking yourself into a decision or something like that as time goes by, but a lot of experience. His players seem to love him across the board, obviously from the area in his previous role. So I got to take some more time to really watch the film. But if you look at his resume and you stack it up against kind of, what we were hoping for or some of the challenges we thought would be associated with hiring for this role, I think this is a phenomenal hire. Really excited to see what he's able to do with this unit and who he's able to bring into the unit over the spring.
Yeah, and Sam and you said, Sam, that it projects to Virginia Tech well because of the similarities between the programs, the regions they recruit, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you look at a lot of the guys who we're going to go over the Tech's roster, quote unquote, for this bowl game, and if you look at a lot of the guys that are on Virginia Tech's offensive line that are trying to get to a spot next year, a lot of them are also offered by West Virginia as well. So there is some familiarity there. And you look at where they're being recruited from: state of Virginia, North Carolina, up in Ohio, up in Pennsylvania, where Virginia Tech normally gets offensive linemen. That's also where Matt Moore was recruiting when he was at West Virginia. So there's a lot of familiarity, regionality. I think it's probably the best hire Virginia Tech could have made, considering the situation that Virginia Tech is in.
Yes, I totally agree. It's on par with as good as we could do. And we kind of echoed that in our comments. We put a short video out. If you want to hear a little bit more on that, go to that video. Something we didn't talk about was the addition of Tomas Rimac, the offensive lineman from West Virginia that comes over with Matt Moore. We learned about that a couple days after the hire. 29 starts. In the 2024 season, he only allowed 9 total pressures, none of which were a sack. And according to PFF, he's never given up a sack in his career. He's a very experienced, skilled O-lineman. I think he was an all Big 12 honorable mention at O-line a couple different times. So this is a massive addition. He's going to be the second heaviest offensive lineman on the team when he comes in behind Brody Meadows, depending on who else comes in. So not only in his age, but the size and the skill, it's all there. And this is a must add. This is huge for us.
It's pretty funny that this is the second time we've seen an offensive lineman go from one side of the Black Diamond Trophy to the other. If you remember Doug Nestor going over to West Virginia, if you really want to turn your brain off and see some community, look at Virginia Tech's comments under Doug Nestor's choice to go on, and Tomas's comments from West Virginia fans for his choice to go on. But yeah, huge addition. And again, look, I put a video out right when the portal opened. There's really like no reason to judge your roster until we get into spring ball, and even a little bit after spring ball. A lot of people are out. A lot of people are in. There will be people that you've never heard of who may come in. I mean, going into 2 years ago, we were like, this Bashal Tutin guy, man, he's pretty good. I mean, he's, yards per carry, he's pretty awesome. He ends up being one of the best running backs and one of the best careers for a Tech running back we've ever seen. So a lot of people want to draw conclusions for who kids are or are not and how bad our roster is or is not. And quite frankly, we haven't seen a lot of these guys play in the ACC. And quite frankly, we don't know who's going to be on our team. So I'm in wait and see mode. And when we take the field in September, that's who we'll know is on the team.
Agree with all of that. And because last year, this time, we were going over who we added, getting Peebles, getting some of the other guys we brought in. We're like, oh man, they're loading up. It's going to be a great year. We're already projecting the 8-9 wins, and look where we ended up. So it is hard to take stuff from right now, but we thought Peebles would be a day one starter. He was. Remac's going to be a day one starter, and we need starters on the offensive line. So it is very big. We're also pursuing Kyle Alterner. I'm not exactly how to pronounce his name, but he was a 4-star in the 2024 class. So he's pretty young in his career, but a highly touted young guy that it's looking like he may choose the Hokies in the portal. So we'll see. There's a couple other West Virginia offensive linemen that may end up coming here, and I will take all of them. Sam, I know you want all of them too.
Yeah, I mean, we need them. From a number standpoint, Virginia Tech needs to bring in a lot of guys. I also think, this bowl game is an interesting tryout for a lot of these offensive linemen. Look at a guy like Tommy Ricard, who's a freshman. He was recruited by West Virginia, got an offer from Moore at West Virginia. What does he look like in his first real action? What do we get out of, some of these guys that we haven't really seen at all? Like, what does Cunningham look like? We haven't seen a lot of action from him. Can he step up to the plate? It's a lot of questions. And as far as like how many spots are open, I think you have probably 4 offensive line spots that are for the taking, at least 1 linebacker spot, at least 1 safety spot, open competition at running back with a lot of guys coming in. And then all 3 starting wide receiver positions are all open. Like, they're all there for the taking. So this is going to be a really interesting spring for Virginia Tech. And fellas, there's a whole other transfer portal window this spring.
Yeah.
So who knows what this roster is going to look like in Atlanta versus South Carolina.
And I don't want to spend too much time on these last couple notes, but we added another safety in Isaiah Cash. So that safety room is pretty much all the way rebuilt now after Mose Phillips decided to leave and Stroman as well. So he seems like a good player, Cash, and we've got 2 others to mix in there. And then CJ McCray and Sam Brumfield hopped in the portal. I think Brumfield, we thought this was his last year anyway, but with the Pavia ruling, he might have an extra year or something like that. So we weren't expecting to have Brum. We think Keller's going to be the starter for right now. So not a crazy loss. And CJ McCray, like the kid, played some over his years, but he was never, a guy we really leaned on. So I'm grateful for their time at Tech, but they're moving on. And we'll do a bigger, like, kind of portals update after the bowl game, once the bowl game's over. But we should hop into this bowl preview, Billy.
Yeah. So before we get into Virginia Tech's bowl specifically, I do just want to have a quick dialogue around bowl games, because I'm hearing, I almost did the thing, Pete, where I pontificate, but I'm trying to be better at that, especially in 2025. I'm seeing some opinions that I disagree with on bowl games. And I just wanted to run around the room here and kind of get everybody's feeling on bowl game. What I disagree with is the notion that bowl games mean nothing. They don't matter. They're not important. We shouldn't play them. So I just wanted to understand what everybody's kind of take on bowl games is. Sam, let me know what you think about bowls.
Well, first and foremost, something needs to happen with these bowl games, because it's not working right now with the transfer portal opening, coaches moving all around. It doesn't work. I don't think it means nothing. I think it's useful for coaches projecting into spring ball to see where some guys are in some competitive landscapes. But for me, it is truly an exhibition game. You are playing a random team from a random part of the country. You're going to a neutral site that is hours and hours away from both campuses. It's a skeleton crew of players for the most part. It's truly an exhibition game. And I don't know if that's the spirit of bowl season. That definitely needs to be changed. How you do that, I don't know.
Yeah, they matter. The amount that they matter, I think, has decreased in terms of what the players think, for sure, because a lot of them are either forced to move on or moving on because of NFL, don't want to get hurt, all the rest of it. But in terms of what they matter to the fans, like, we are all going to watch it. The number, whether it's a win or a loss, is going to factor into the final record. When you look back, we're going to see the Tulane win, and we went 7-6 last year, and it was an above 500 season. People aren't going to talk about in 20 years that Tulane team was depleted. They're going to look at 7-6. So as long as they factor into the final records and we're counting them and what they mean to the fans, like when we won that bowl game, it changed the tenor of the offseason ever so slightly to being more positive than it would have been. And so in that respect, they matter as well. In terms of the AP poll, they tend to matter historically. Like if a team wins their last couple games, including the bowl, you'll see that team maybe pop into the AP poll, which matters for programs. So I push back on them not mattering because they do. In terms of like taking something away from the ACC's horrendous bowl record this year, we already know this conference isn't good. They suck ass. We're 1-9 in bowl games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pitt game was winnable. Narduzzi screwed it up. There was some Miami didn't play Cam Ward for the second half because of just, if you're not going to play, just don't play.
It's worse than not playing. Yeah. It's worse than not playing.
It is. That's I don't think I've ever seen a situation like that.
Well, he broke the FBS or the D1 record for passing touchdowns and then quit. Like I guess they wanted to get him the record. I don't know, but it was idiotic. I did appreciate the fact that Shador and Travis Hunter played in their bowl game, although maybe they shouldn't have, because
I give them more credit for playing.
I give them credit. I give them a ton of credit.
I saw Travis Hunter trying to tackle. He wasn't playing. Or maybe he just can't tackle.
He was on the field. I got to give him a lot of credit for playing.
I give him credit. They were getting paid and they were insured that was a big talking point, is that they insured those players. Whatever. It's a shame what's happened to bowl games. I totally understand it. I think as we go forward into this contract era, like actual contracts, it'll just be written in like you're playing in the bowl and you can't opt out because you're under contract for the following year. So you're not in the portal. And so all those players that are under contract will end up playing, but we're not there yet.
I think bowl season, the only reason it has not completely taken a nosedive in terms of ratings and being talked about is because of gambling.
I mean, yeah.
I think that's the only thing.
You guys are both gambling on all the games, right?
I'm getting. I mean, Texas. First off, Texas A&M. You're up 24-7. You can't pull out that win. Nebraska somehow doesn't cover. Nebraska doesn't cover because they're like net minus 12 points on special teams. Ridiculous. Absolutely.
Are we turning this into a Scott Van Pelt bad beats?
No,
there's been some bad beats.
I will just say to put a bow on this. So bowls definitely don't mean what they used to. We had 15 bowls in 1980, 19 bowls in 1990, 25 in 2000, and 35 in 2010. I have no idea how many we have right now. It feels like we have. How many do we have, Sam? Of course you know, because of course you do.
It's like 39.
It's like 30. It's 38 or 39.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and that's why I push back on like you know what? For going 500, you probably don't deserve a bowl game. I'd love us to bump that up to like 8 or 9 wins. Like, I think everybody can agree with that. So, but here's the difference. To say they mean nothing is crazy. Navy will talk about beating Oklahoma for years. Iowa State, kids were literally crying on the football field because they became the winningest program team in program history. NC State and ECU literally fought each other. This all happened in the last 36 hours. And there's a huge difference between, Pete, you mentioned the difference between 7-6 and 6-7. What about the difference between 9-4 and 10-4, 9-5 and 10-5? It's a huge difference.
It's what happened to us in 2016. We got the Bug Bowl win. We got
100%. And think about the off seasons between 2016 and 2017. It's a totally different feeling when you lose to Oklahoma State, and whether that's right or wrong or indifferent, fact is they do matter. And I think if we refine it over time, we can make it better.
I also think that this bowl season in particular has been really good.
Been
Like,
great.
I think a lot of the games have been fun. And maybe yesterday wasn't the best day, but even Miami and Iowa State was awesome. I didn't love the fact that Cam Ward quit, but like the game itself was awesome. I think, I mean, we've said everything that needs to be said. It's a shame what's happened to them, but at the same time, the playoff games are bowl games. We're getting 3 playoff games on New Year's Day, just like they did back in the 80s and the 70s. It was New Year's Day. That's the big day. Well, guess what? We're getting 3 really meaningful bowl games that day that haven't happened, that have meant this much ever. Like they've never meant more than they mean right now. They haven't. And so that is exciting. And so in that respect, bowl season and bowl games do mean more than they ever have.
Shifting over to Virginia Tech, here are PJ Fleck's thoughts on bowl games. He said, 1, it's a celebration of 2024. So if you're preparing for an elite opponent from the ACC, wow. Thank you, PJ. In Virginia Tech. 2, you want to continue to get guys better. So it's an extension of spring ball. It's pre-spring ball. You want to be able to bring the floor of your program up, and you want to see who's really going to help you next year. First of all, PJ Fleck, I don't know who to compare him to in the NBA. If it's like Mike Malone or Joe, like if Joe Mazzulla and Mike Malone had a kid, it'd probably be PJ Fleck. He's one of those like pontificating, like just kind of weird guys who like gets off on being a little bit weird. Looks like Josh Pate. Interesting guy.
Buzz Williams.
That is what.
Buzz Williams.
Yeah, Buzz is a good comp, Sam.
Yeah. Buzz is a great comp, actually. Way better than my comp. We don't need the visual of Mike Malone and Joe Mazzulla. If you are in town for the game, and then I'm about to pass it to Pete here to drive for the preview, but there is a pregame tailgate from 4 to 6:30 that the VT Alumni Association is putting on. Is at Resident Culture in South End. You do need to register to get your ticket. Your ticket comes with 2 drink tickets. I'm planning on being there. I know a ton of folks from Sons of Saturday are going to be in Charlotte. We will probably be doing something post-game. Game is at 8:00. We're looking at a couple of different bars in the area. It's not going to be anything crazy, but if you want to get together, have a beer, hang out, we're planning on doing that after the game. Or if you want to meet up before the game, we'll probably be there for a little bit. And then, who knows? But excited to see everybody in Charlotte. Should be a lot of fun. Charlotte's a great destination, and it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. I also want to mention, if you guys are watching the game, and I know you will be, whether you're there or watching on TV, call the reaction line and give us your reactions for the bowl game. The number is 540-251-2169. We've had an amazing amount of calls this year, some really funny weeks of calls, set records in terms of the number of calls. So make sure you call 540-251-2169 during the game. And also make sure to like this video and subscribe to Sons of Saturday. We've had a tremendous amount of success this year at Sons of Saturday, Two Deep and Pat and Billy's show. Numbers have been up, and it's been great. So thank you all for listening, but make sure to keep liking the videos. It really helps us out. Do you want to do any ad reads? Are we doing ad reads this show, Bill?
No, none today.
All right, We're good. You guys are getting some nice ad-free content here. So let's talk about the Golden Gophers, just a little bit about their season. Billy started it with PJ Fleck. He is 57-39 in his years at Minnesota. He's been there for 8 years, fellas. That's kind of hard to believe, considering I still think he just came from Western Michigan. But he's had 3 9+ win seasons for the Gophers. He is 5-0 in bowl games. And that Prize also 1-0. So we got 2 undefeated coaches in bowl games squaring off here. And Minnesota actually has a 7-game bowl winning streak. And according to my research, that's the longest bowl winning streak in Big Ten history. 7 straight. It's hard to win that many bowl games.
That's crazy.
So in 2024, they've been an interesting team, a team Sam and I have talked about a number of times, a tough team. They went 7-5, but easily could have won a couple more games. The Penn State game came right down to the wire. They were 5-4 in the Big Ten. It's funny to think back to week 1 when they lose that game to UNC.
Yeah. Crazy.
And they miss a couple field goals in that game. They should have won. And it's like, oh, well, maybe UNC is kind of good. No, that was just Minnesota's probably worst game of the season. After that, they ripped off 4 in a row at one point. They beat a ranked USC. They beat a ranked Illinois. I think Illinois was their best win of the year. And then they also beat UCLA and Wisconsin. lose to Rutgers. Of course, we're familiar with that. And they lost to Penn State, as I already mentioned, before beating Wisconsin at the end of the year. They're 30th in FPI. We're 35th. So this kind of just sets the stage. They're pretty even teams in terms of how we performed this year. But when I looked at what Minnesota did and some of the wins they got, it's a lot better than anything we did.
It's very interesting because at face value, I was like, okay, like on the calendar, their story this year is very similar to our story. They go 2-2 in September, they go undefeated in October, and then they go 1-2 in November. But then you look at the games that they won and kind of some of the margins in those. So there is a difference. I do want to tip my cap. I can't believe PJ Fleck has been at Minnesota for 8 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I think he's done a really, really solid job and has a lot of talent on this team. It feels like everybody's eyeballs were on Minnesota week 1. And it's so funny when you're in that spot, because if you don't have like an extraordinary year and you have an average year, the only thing that your brain can come back to is that they lost to UNC by 3 and an awful game in week 1. And you kind of just think that's who the team is. But going back and looking at some of their results and looking at some of the stuff they have going, I mean, they have a transfer from New Hampshire who's playing quarterback for them. Mm-hmm. And here's what's even crazier about it. They're projecting him as a top 10 prospect at the quarterback position for the draft this upcoming year, which I also thought was wild.
Which means he'll probably be drafted if he's like 10 quarterbacks get
very
taken,
well, very
right?
well could be. And he's playing in the game. So it's an exciting matchup. I think Minnesota has been much more tight-lipped. I know we're going to talk about opt-outs here. They only have 6 confirmed opt-outs right now, and they're all transfer portal kids. They've kept it kind of close to the vest on kids that are going to the NFL if they're going to play or not. So I don't really know how to end the point that I'm making. I'm excited for
Sam,
this game.
I'm curious about your research in terms of like the opt-outs. Did you find anything that you can kind of confirm? No, I've got a couple that are likely.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few that we know of, but they've been really quiet on this front. And I understand that from like a strategic point of view from PJ Fleck, but I also think if you look at preparation for these bowl games, every coach is going to tell you it's so much more about focusing on your guys and like getting transitioning your second string guys to your first string. That's kind of what these 15 bowl practices are for. So I don't know if Virginia Tech is really going out there and like, oh, we need to stop number 32 on Minnesota or like, stuff like that. I don't know if that's the vibe that's coming in practice. So maybe it's not that big of an advantage, but yeah, they've been pretty quiet about it, but it is a program that takes bowl games seriously. I mean, clearly they've won a lot, especially under PJ Fleck. So it is something that they take pride in. They don't normally have a lot of opt-outs, and the culture of their program they're not an opt-out program. Yeah. Like it's just not how they've run things under PJ Fleck.
They're not a Florida State.
They have it. Nope. Like most of their guys are going to play unless they're like already banged up and they don't want to re-aggravate an injury or something stupid like that. Like if the guys are healthy, they're going to play for Minnesota.
Couple quick notes real quick before we move on here. I thought just in my research, this was interesting. So the 2 coaches before PJ Fleck were Tracy Claeys and Jerry Kill, who both were on staff during the Fuente tenure, and playing in the bowl game and who probably has an NFL future is Quinn Carroll. So I remember Quinn Carroll. He was the number 18 offensive tackle in the country, helped out on his visit when he visited Virginia Tech. If you recognize that name, his brother is Colin Carroll, who started 55 games for the Hokies from 2007 to 2011 as a long snapper. He was actually the program most starts in a row record holder for Virginia Tech. So shout out to Colin and Quinn.
Yeah, that's a cool nugget that I was not aware of. And Quinn has played a lot. Putting a bow, as we're talking about bows here, on the final opt-out thing. I think that's an area on the offensive line that they may have some key opt-outs, because you've got Irsay, which is potentially going to be a first-round pick at offensive tackle. That's a likely opt-out. I don't know for sure. I can only go on likely. And then Philip Daniels is transferring to Ohio State, and he started the last 4 games at the other tackle position. So they could be a little depleted up front, particularly on the outside. Daniel Jackson he's very like Isaiah Ford-like in terms of his production and what he did at Minnesota. He could be an opt-out. He's had over 200 reception in his career for Minnesota. I think he's like third all time or something. So if he's looking to get drafted, maybe he could opt out. Marcus Major, transfer from Oklahoma, who came in and played backup running back. I've heard that he's going to the NFL and might not play. Again, he's a backup running back, but I felt like it's something to mention. And then Elijah Spencer would be another wide receiver to watch, potentially opting out. On the defensive side, Ja Joyner, really good player. He put up something about Senior Bowl or draft or whatever that indicates he might not be playing. Something to watch. And then Justin Wally, he's a draftable guy. 10 pass breakups this year at corner for Minnesota. I think he's opting out as well. So it's not as if Minnesota is fully loaded. I think they are going to have guys that are not playing at key positions. We have more, and we'll talk about our depth chart later on.
You know, with the offense and the defensive, we should just do this like rapid fire. Because if we're going to get up here and we're going to pontificate to all of you guys on like, here are the players to watch out for, here's what it is to watch out for, I'm much more excited to get to like, I'm excited to watch this about Virginia Tech. So does everyone want to kind of give their notes on offense and defense? I can go with offense first. Their quarterback is Matt Brosmer, 6'2", 225 senior.
Max Brosmer.
Maximum
Brosmer.
6'2", 225. He's a senior from Roswell, Georgia. He's the transfer from New Hampshire. 17 touchdowns on only 5 interceptions, 2,617 yards. Crazy stat. He's only thrown 1 interception since the beginning of October, which is just wild. And again, Jordan Reed has him ranked as with the 10th best quarterback prospect in the NFL draft. So excited about that. Let's see who he's throwing to and who he's handing it off to. That is my offensive preview for Minnesota.
Well, I was going to say something more broad-based. They've been more of a passing team because of Brosmer this year than they have been in the past. They typically run the ball a ton. They're low in terms of like where they rank on pass attempts in college football. They're typically like in the hundreds. This year they passed quite a bit, and they were 55th in pass efficiency. Brosmer was 7th in the Big Ten in pass efficiency at 138. Not amazing, but not bad, and definitely more passing than they typically do. I still think this is more of like the hard-nosed team, Sam, that you have to look for in the trenches that can beat you up. And with our secondary being a little depleted, that's what I'm kind of watching from the offense. Will they continue this passing thing that they do, or will they go after what's been our weakness for most of the year in the run defense?
Well, it's interesting because Virginia Tech is very depleted on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, but this is not a Minnesota team that at any point this year has looked like an offensive juggernaut. They've only scored over 28 points a few times this year. One of those was against Rhode Island. They scored over 28 against Maryland, but they haven't reached the 4 touchdown mark in their last 4 regular season games. They only scored 21 against UCLA, 24 against USC, only scored 27 against Nevada. So this is not an offense that puts up a lot of points. Now, will that change because Virginia Tech has some backup secondary players and is without their best pass rusher? I don't know, but that is something to watch. This is not an explosive offense. One thing they are very good at, though, is 4th down. They are 8 of 9 on 4th down this year. Wow. So something to watch. If they line up for 4th down, they are very good at converting 4th down. 9 is not a ton of 4th down attempts, but they are very good. But again, 113th in the country in yards per play. They're just not explosive. They don't score a lot. Brosmer has some tools that project to the NFL, but as a unit, they haven't really put it together in a game this year against Big Ten competition.
Yeah, I'm looking at their offensive line too, Sam. You said the thing about the yards per play being pretty low in college football. They're 106th in yards per carry. So it's not the efficiency from the running back position either. Although I do think Darius Taylor is good and someone that we need to watch for. He was 6th in the Big Ten in rush yards per game this season. If they have all their skill guys, Jackson, Spencer, Taylor, it's going to be potent. But because of the fact they've allowed a lot of tackles for loss up front, they don't rush for a great average. And if they're missing 2 tackles, even with us missing APR and Peoples, I think like we can neutralize a little bit of what they want to do up front.
Mm-hmm.
I think the craziest thing that I heard on there was that Minnesota played Rhode Island. I don't know who signed off on that, but that is a crazy.
Minnesota has had an interesting non-conference. So they only had the 3 non-conference games, but they hosted UNC, hosted Rhode Island, and hosted Nevada.
I can't believe Rhode Island was cool with traveling all the way out there, or Minnesota paying for it. Whatever. Yeah, that's true. Flipping over to the defense. Do y'all have any notes you want to share on defense?
I think it's a great defense.
It's a very good defense.
They've been stifling. They hardly bend and they don't break. Like very rarely. They've given up so few explosive plays. Top 5 in both 20+ and 30+ yard plays. Just one play over 50 yards the entire season. So they keep things in front of them. They don't do a lot of havoc though, Sam.
No, not at all. Like this isn't a team that is going to create a lot of negative plays for the opposing offense, but it is a team that's really hard to move the ball on. They have a lot of really disciplined players on this team, and their secondary, that's the area where they're going to make their big plays in the secondary. Freshman safety, Coy Perrick. He was the number 3 safety in the country from Minnesota. Went to the Gophers. He's been really good. He leads them in interceptions this year. He's kind of their you got the Ed Reed beer. Pete, he's not Ed Reed, but he plays a little bit like him. Like he reads the game very well. He'll be their havoc guy, but they're not a big sack team. They're not a big TFL team. They try to keep things in front of them, and they're really, really stout.
Yeah, and that name, Coy, it looks like Perch, but I did hear it's pronounced like Perrick or
it's Perrick.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
He had 5 interceptions this year, and he's also a really good punt returner. He had the same punt return average as Jay Lane. They were next to each other in the standings. So that's something to watch on special teams too, is Coy returning punts. But the D-line, it's tough. If they get Ja Joyner to play, Anthony Smith, Strigow, like if those guys are all playing, it's tough to move them. And that's why when I'm looking at this, going up against this defense, Lindenberg as a linebacker, I just feel like we're going to have to be running Pop so much. Like things are going to break down, and we may rely a lot on Pop's legs.
Yeah, number 45, linebacker Cody Lindenberg. He's their do-it-all guy. I mean, he is the quintessential. He looks like a hockey player.
Yeah.
And he's a lot faster than he looks. He's their best defensive player, I think. He's
That
a really
like
good
a racist
player.
Comment.
He looks like a hockey player. Like he looks like when he smiles, I bet you he has
more athletic than he looks.
First guy in, last guy out, coach's son, great route runner. No, like he looks like a Minnesota linebacker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he plays really well. I think he is one of those linebackers that you play where you're like, we kind of need to run away from him. That's the kind of linebacker he is. So I'll be interested to see how Virginia Tech attacks that. But this is a team, like you said, man, they're really good. They're allowing less than 18 points per game. That's number 11 in the nation.
Man.
Number 13 in yards per play. Number 20 in adjusted EPA per play. Less than 180 yards passing per game.
They're 9th in passing efficiency allowed. So their secondary has been top notch.
It's outside of like creating those havoc plays, those sacks, TFLs, fumbles, things like that. They're top 20, top 25 in pretty much everything.
Yeah.
A very good defensive unit.
Another note that I on Minnesota, really impressive how they have been able to handle their, I guess these two things have kind of coincided with each other. Wisconsin's downfall and Minnesota getting better every single year. From 2004 to 2017, Wisconsin beat Minnesota every single year. Minnesota's won 3 of the last 4. They just won that rivalry game coming into this game for PJ Fleck. They won 24-7. They kind of handled Wisconsin. So look, I get the vibe. Tell me if you guys disagree with me. I get the vibe that this is a group of guys at Minnesota who are more excited to finish the season than maybe we are kind of getting to the end of the season. Do you think that's projecting, or do you get that vibe? Every interview that I listened to with Minnesota, guys sounded excited for the opportunity to play. That's just how I'm reading it personally.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech is in such a transitional phase right now with both the coaching staff and the roster that it's hard to, see the motivation. Now, when the ball is kicked, I think there's a switch that goes in guys' heads where they immediately that competitive gene turns on.
Ball.
Yeah, and that all of that other stuff goes out the window once the ball's kicked, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of preparation, in terms of guys being ready, in terms of how many of your starters are going, that's something I think Minnesota definitely has the edge for. Now, what you could also say for Virginia Tech is you have this X factor at quarterback with Pop Watson, and Tech has a lot of wide receiver opt-outs. We also know Tech has a lot of wide receiver talent in that
who want to get film on that.
Who want to get film. Yeah, we know it really doesn't seem to matter who is on offense for Virginia Tech. They're a pretty consistent 27, 28, 30 points a game. Like they've done that all year long. So if Tech can get to that mark and the defense can hold, it'll be a close game. Like I don't at first, and I told you guys a week ago, like I thought Tech was going to get blown out when I heard this matchup and all the opt-outs. I was like, this is going to be a 30-point loss for Tech. It's going to get ugly. I don't know if I see that now thinking about it. I think Pop is a good enough player. There's enough talent wide receiver that Tech they won't blow the doors off the Minnesota defense by any stretch. I don't think that's even an option, but I do think they'll score because it's a very similar defense in terms of rankings and statistics to Duke. And with a quarterback who was fresh off the bench, you were able to put up 28 points.
Yep.
So,
and that's where I'm going to come in at this. Like Billy asked about the excitement factor. There's a couple things where I think, although the Minnesota players might seem excited, it's a lot of the same team they've had all year. For us, you're getting a quarterback that the team seems excited about, a young guy that has kind of had a Hendon Hooker effect on the team, at least in the one game that we saw him start, where Ollie Jennings played the best game of his season, the last two games with Pop at the helm. So will we see the younger guys and some of the vets kind of step up their game to support Pop or whatever because of the excitement that he brings? Also, I saw the interview with Benji Gosnell. He seemed pretty damn excited about playing in the game. And this isn't the Pinstripe Bowl situation. We do have a lot of opt-outs, and I'm going to put the roster up. I got these graphics from someone on 247, and I apologize because I tried to go find who it was at the end after I downloaded them. I couldn't find it. But this is also something that we're going to talk a little bit about. I got the two deep from the offense and the defense on the screen. Not going to run through the whole thing, but we know we're depleted up front. There's no Chaplin. There's no Braylon Moore. We know those guys are gone. And in the secondary, we know the guys we're missing, Dorian Strong, Mansour, Delane, etc. But I do think on this list on the screen, there's no Fuga. I think Fuga is going to play. He commented to someone on Twitter, like, I'll see you in Charlotte or whatever. And I would expect that kind of guy to play. Also not on here is Caden Moore. I don't know why Caden Moore wouldn't play. I don't know why he would opt out. Now, every guy can have their own reasons, and maybe he figures to have an NFL future and doesn't want to risk an injury, or he just doesn't feel like it because his brother's not there. I don't know. But I kind of expect him to play when it's all said and done, because just as coy as Fleck has been, Pry's been coy as well. Will Keontae Jenkins play? I don't know. We have confirmed plenty of guys being out. But if you're asking me, Sam, and Billy, the positions where we've taken a significant downgrade, quarterback, what we were getting out of Drones this year, as injured as we heard about him these last couple of weeks, I don't think that's the downgrade to have Pop starting this game. I really don't. He looked very good versus UVA.
And I think that he's going to have an opportunity to there are two schools of thought here. Number one, Kyron Drones obviously was injured all year and didn't forget how to play football. I've seen a lot of awful takes on Kyron Drones' ability to play or not to play football over the course of this year, which I think is preposterous. They're both going to compete during the offseason, and the best quarterback will win the job. I do think that this gives Pop an awesome opportunity to showcase his skill set. I think the biggest gripe that a lot of people may have against Pop is, okay, he played really well against a UVA team. Well, this is going to be an opportunity to go against a really good defensive line, a really good secondary, lots of new faces on offense. So for Pop, this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity.
Yes, it is.
And not to mention, I think this team loves Pop. Young guys, old guys, middle guys, they all seem to gravitate towards Pop. I also want to tip my cap to a guy like Steven Gosnell and Ollie Jennings, who are playing in this game. There was a lot of buzz around them not playing. Actually, there was zero buzz about Steven Gosnell not playing. He was going to always play this game. But I am glad to see that they're both playing, and we'll see how it goes here.
And that's what I was going to say about wide receiver. Like, I don't think QB is a downgrade. Wide receiver, yes, we're missing Felton and Lane. But if you're giving me Jennings, Gosnell, and Green, and Jennings is maybe the healthiest he's been all season, I don't think that's too bad. He's looked good working with Pop. Not too much of a downgrade at wide receiver either, even though I love Jalen Lane. And then running back, you're not, I mean, Tootin is God. So you're downgrading at running back. There's no doubt about it. But Coney played well in spots. We'll see what Tyler Mason can do. Maybe like, I don't know. That's a little bit of a downgrade for sure, going from Tootin to Coney. And then offensive line, defensive line, secondary. Big downgrades. However, the offensive line wasn't that good this year. So maybe this group of guys has a tremendous day. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the defensive secondary too, like Dante Lovett, Thomas Williams, Quentin Reddish, Jalen Jones, that's your starting four in the back end. All of them played a lot of ball this year, and all of them played pretty well. Right. So you feel like those guys can hold their own against good competition, right? Same with the linebacker core, Woodson, Keller, Spencer. Those guys had good moments this year, all played well. So I don't think it's a skeleton crew by any means. I think Tech will be competitive in this game. It really comes down to the offensive line. Because if Tech can't block in the offensive line, it's curtains.
I mean, we haven't done a whole lot of blocking this year. We found a way to win 6 games. So, I know what you're saying.
Part of that's behind it all everything running back.
Yes. It could get worse.
Yeah, it astonishingly, it absolutely can get worse. I don't want to see. I'm so excited to watch Pop. I don't want to watch Pop in a situation like he was at Duke, because it's impossible to judge Pop at all if you're just having him run for his life and he's sacked 8 times. So I'd love, regardless of how Pop plays, I just hope he's given the opportunity to go through reads, to make plays, and we'll see if he can make them or not, because he did against UVA.
If he has a good game against this defense, there are going to be so many offseason lies regarding Pop Watson, and maybe they would be deserved, because this is a very, very good defense, regardless of who they may or may not be missing. And I'm wondering, in your guys' head, what's the bar for a good game from Pop in this game? Like, how many yards passing, how many total yards? Because against UVA, I think he had about 300 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Is that, if he does that against Minnesota, that would be outstanding.
If he does that against Minnesota, it's going to be a very interesting spring.
Yeah. I have and maybe it's a problem with me. I have a problem saying if he throws for X amount of yards. I really like, what was most impressive to me about his game at UVA was not the amount of yards he had or the amount of points we scored. It's how in command he looked and how familiar with the system he looked. Like, I didn't even look at the stat sheet, and I was like, this is a guy who understands what we're trying to run. Yep. He understands how to go through the reads, and he's so confident in what he's doing that he's not immediately looking to the sideline. He's actually showing off in front of people's faces before getting the call. So it was kind of like just watching him go through it and what his body language was like. So
he was smooth with it, man. He was smooth with it. And he threw some of those beautiful passes. The pass to Lane was just perfect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will be really interested to see if he can avoid the horrific, awful mistake, because it feels like if Tech is going to win this game, they can't afford those mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't, throw a 5-yard out route a second late and it gets picked off for a pick 6, right? You can't, fumble 2 or 3 times, stuff like that. You can't have those mistakes. If he can avoid those mistakes and hold his own and show some accuracy, shows mobility, I think you feel great about it. I don't think you can go into this game against a team that nobody's been able to throw for 200 on and say, all right, I need 200, right? I think that's a really tough
No, I don't want to put that on him. I'm just saying if he were to do that, I think it's going to be more 150 yards passing, maybe 50 yards to 75 yards rushing. But like I said before, if he's under duress the whole game, you saw how quick he was reading what's going on, pocket presence, and jumping out of there. And that may be our best chance for victory is him scrambling.
Yep, I'd agree. Like, I think our best chance is him making plays out of nothing. I think that can be the X factor in a game, right?
It's
if
like
your quarterback runs
like,
around and just
whatever
makes a play,
plays we don't call is our best chance to win.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a more competitive game than I thought going in. Also, this is really random. Go kind of back to the guys who could play. Wilfred Panay is in Blacksburg right now. He's been in France for like 2 weeks. I don't know if he's playing in the game, but he's in Blacksburg right now. So you might have another guy on the defensive line.
Well, did you see on that one story from France, he had the lunch pail like with him?
He had the lunch pail with him.
And are you taking the lunch pail with you overseas unless you're playing in the bowl game? To me, that indicates he would play. But he
hasn't been to practice.
We need, like, if I'm reading tea leaves, lunch pail in France means playing in bowl game.
Unless he like just took it, which would kind of be a baller move. Like, I'm just taking this. But so they could have a little more experience.
I don't know.
Yeah, they could have a little more experience on the defensive line, a little more playmaking ability. Panay's been very good this year. Who knows, man? Who knows? Like, I don't know what this team is going to look like because neither of us have been at practice. We don't know how much game prep is going on for this, right? We don't know how much Minnesota film study is going on versus let's get our packages installed. Let's work out some guys at different positions. Like,
I'll tell you one thing.
You don't know how
we
much
have Fuga and Penne playing.
Oh yeah,
I feel a lot better about what we can do on defense. Those are veterans. And like, I want to see Emmett Loss. I want to see what he can do. But like Gilliam, Penne, and Fuga, like Gilliam's going to be out there, but the other two guys are in question. It makes a big difference. Like Fuga has been on this team forever, and I know he's going to play, but Penne has had a surprisingly good year. So it would be nice to have those guys. Behind them, Keller and Woodson have to have huge games if we're going to have any shot. Because there's going to be guys running everywhere, whether it's the running backs or that passing game they like to do, because Jackson's like kind of a possession guy. He's always in the middle of the field. The linebackers have to play really well. Caleb Spencer is going to be called on to have a big game.
I am very interested also to see. I mean, we've talked about it all year that Virginia Tech has been the number one reverse team in the country. Mm-hmm. Are we going to be more trickery in this bowl game? Are we going to let it fly here more so than we have all year? Because if you're like ranking teams based upon their
trickeration,
their goofiness,
I think we're in the top like 10 percentile. Like we're pretty high up there. So it could get pretty crazy here. I think to summarize what you were saying, Pete, I don't want to watch a game where Minnesota can just run the ball all game. That's not fun for the viewer. It's not going to end well for Virginia Tech. So if Virginia Tech is able to stop the run and we can get into one of these situations, and this transitions nice into my next point, I would like to bet the over. I would like to bet the over because I think Pop Watson is an explosive player. I would like to bet the over because I think this quarterback, if he's playing in this game, is going to want to showcase his arm and his ability to throw the football, or he would have sat out. So I'm going to bet the over. I hope the Hokies can stop the run. And if the Hokies can stop the run, I think we have the chance to watch a little bit of a fun, high-flying Dukes Mayo Bowl. And that's what I'd like to see.
You know, I was shocked when I saw the over-under because it is low.
It is.
It's 42.5, which that's a pretty low over-under if you don't normally bet those.
That's an Iowa over-under. Like that is.
The line in general is 7.5 Minnesota, which has grown, right, Sam? I think it started around 4.5 Minnesota.
Yeah, it started 4.5 Minnesota and then grew to about a touchdown. I like the over too. Just that your Virginia Tech doesn't have a defensive coordinator right now. So there's that. And I also think you have a Minnesota defense. We don't know how many opt-outs they have. Like, we're a little curious that, and a Virginia Tech offense that has been consistently good this year. Not great, but consistently good. They find a way to put 20-some points up on the board. So I like the over. something we didn't mention, these two teams do have a common opponent in Rutgers. Both teams lost to Rutgers. Tech lost by, 3? And
Painful.
Yeah, painful. And then Minnesota lost by 7. So
okay.
I think these teams these are as even. If Virginia Tech was at full strength and Minnesota was at full strength, this would be about as even of a matchup as you can get.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it reminds me of the SP Plus. If you look at the SP Plus, we're favored to win. But the problem with SP Plus is we've been favored to win a lot of games and we haven't won them. Yeah. So whatever the data that we've put on the field is that of an 8 to 9 win team at minimum. And we are 6-6. And so with the depletion we have of losing APR and Dorian Strong alone, it's pretty devastating. I'm not going to lie. Like, that sucks. And when you just look at Minnesota in general, big picture thoughts, they're a tougher, better coach team than we are. They just are. If we were both full strength on a neutral field, I would have taken Minnesota to win. The fact that we have Pop and some other guys that are in and out and different rosters, it changes the math, but it doesn't negate the fact that they're a better coach team than we are right now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think, Virginia Tech is not only dealing with a roster that's a bit depleted, dealing with a coaching staff that's a bit depleted. How do guys adapt to their new roles? If this gets to a close game and the defense needs a stop late in the fourth quarter, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. What's your scheme? What's your personnel? Who knows, man?
Does anybody have any definitive, I feel like this is going to happen, other than the over? Because that's really kind of all I'm on. I guess to caveat that, really excited to watch Pop, obviously. Really excited to watch these young guys, obviously. And for as big of a bummer this year was, it's cool we're playing a bowl game in Charlotte. It's convenient. Probably going to see a lot of people we haven't seen in a long time. But I don't really know what to expect.
My definitive take is that we will be very well represented in Charlotte. A Friday night game in a city that's only 3 hours from Blacksburg, not too far from DC. So many of the people we know are going down. It's going to be fun. Otherwise,
just happy to be here, bro.
It's a bowl game, man. It would be nice to win and be 7-6, as going back to the beginning of the show. I'm not super optimistic, but I am optimistic about having a great time in Charlotte. My trip down there is not necessarily to see us win the football game. It's to hang with you guys, have fun, and enjoy the fact that even though this season was disappointing, this is a nice celebration. You said the Pop-Tarts Bowl thing. Mayo Bowl is one of the best, PR bowls there is. They do such a good job with the goofiness and the mascot and all that stuff.
We'll get memes. Yeah.
This is a primetime game. It's 7:30 on a Friday. It's the only show in town. This is a nationally televised big game and a big time slot.
Should we wear our orange jerseys since their colors are so similar to ours?
I was going to ask this. Do you know who's home and away? Technically,
I don't know.
I
can try to find out real quick.
I think we should wear orange. It's in some capacity.
But that could be an away color or a home color. You're saying that you have to choose, right? The home team gets to choose.
Yeah,
we're the home team. I think Virginia Tech is home.
Yeah.
So I would maybe or I can maybe see us doing white, orange, white again. That'd be kind of cool. Actually, orange, I don't know if we have the orange
white pants.
Do we have the orange jerseys anymore?
I would think so. Why wouldn't we?
I don't think we shredded them.
Where'd they go?
Well, I mean, these look,
and we wore them on such a great night too. That was probably the best game of our season.
I think we go
Boston College.
I think we go white, the VT white helmet, because I know we don't have the script.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
VT white helmet, orange, white, and then
Minnesota
goes maroon, start to a game. White, maroon.
Have you talked about? We didn't talk about the bowl games we've played in Charlotte, because we've played there a couple times in Belk Bowls. This is our first Mayo Bowl, but we had the 2016 comeback against Arkansas W, and then we had the end of the game terrible defense, Lynn Bowden disaster that was the Kentucky game in 2019. So we're 1-1 in Bank of America. in bowl games. Now, we've played there in ACC title games and whatever, but in terms of the bowl games and this bowl game that has just changed names, this is the rubber match. Yep. And it would be really nice to serve PJ Fleck a loss when he's 5-0 at Minnesota in bowl games and break the streak. I mean, Minnesota is due for a bowl loss. Let's add that on the pile that might help Virginia Tech. They're 7-0 in their last 7 games, bowl games. Like, that's very hard to do and hard to keep up.
As we wrap this up, I will ask you guys, like, let's say Tech goes out there and performs really well and wins this game, right? Like 31-20. They win it by a score, maybe 2 scores. They look good. Will that change your outlook going into the spring ball as opposed to Tech losing this game 35-14?
I'm so glad you brought this up. And then I have one more point on the winning the bowl. As far as I'm concerned, this campaign was a failure in 2024. Like, winning a bowl game, like, I think Tech has done a very good job and this isn't a slight, this is just a fact. I think they've done a very good job from a PR perspective, like moving on past this year. This year was a train wreck of a year. If we win the game, I'm happy for the kids. I'm happy for everybody else. I'm ready to turn the page to next year, and then I will judge next year based upon that. I think last year, back to the whole bowl games things mattering or not, I don't feel silly for feeling good about winning against Tulane, no matter who Tulane had on the field, because you watched Kyron Jones play well, Tootin play well, you watched the offensive line play pretty well. It was a great experience. It just didn't come together this year. So no, when I look back at the overall, like 20 years from now, when I look back at 2024 and I see that year and be like, one of the most disappointing years in my fandom, whether we win the Mayo Bowl or not.
I can 100% say this has been the most like awful year of Virginia Tech football.
We almost made it all the way out of this pod without getting to this discussion.
Well, I mean, it's true. Like,
I just, like, for me, it's not as bad as like 2014 after beating Ohio State and then falling on our face, or 2015. Both of those years are big what if seasons, but that's just me personally. And I'm a little bit older than you guys, and Billy was still at Tech at that time. So I just view it a little differently. It was massively disappointing, but to answer the question of whether this will have an impact on how I view the season or our coaches, it will, because if we beat this Minnesota team, who I think has a significantly better coaching roster and a better overall roster in this game, I think it would be a massive coaching victory for our staff. I actually do think that. And so in that respect, it would make me feel better about the season to say, okay, they prepped for a game correctly. They started the right quarterback and they made some plays and they won the game. Now, we could lose by 3 touchdowns and that's not going to happen. But if we win this game, I would see it as a victory for our coaching staff. Like, that was a good day.
I like the way that you put it, Pete. I agree with everything you just said. I'm saying that my memory of this season can't be changed very much by the results.
That's also fair.
Game.
Yes,
that's true. That's kind of how I'm viewing
the memory of Nashville is not going away. Like, it's just not going away.
But here's what the opportunity is that I didn't even think of until you mentioned it, Sam. This is an opportunity for Virginia Tech to win an out-of-conference Power 5 football game since 2017.
Oh my God.
Hasn't happened since that West Virginia game.
That's ridiculous.
Because I was thinking, when was the last time Virginia Tech won a bowl game against a Power 5 school? And the thing that we were talking about earlier this year, Power 5 out-of-conference opponent since 2017. So we have the opportunity to get both of those monkeys off of our back. Would be kind of cool.
Yeah, it would be a positive day in Virginia Tech football. It would be a positive step. I also think, if Tech is able to win this game by scoring 28, 31 plus points, it does give you a bit of proof of concept for Tyler Bowen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
it also might mean other things for individual players. Like, if we win and we run for 175 yards, we may have found our center of the future. There are little things that are going to happen in this game like that. Maybe Emmett Laws ends up with 3 tackles for loss. I don't know, but it can speak volumes about what's going to come down the road. But I'm just excited to get down there, fellas.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun time. And this was a fun pod. I appreciate you guys doing this. This was great. Everyone, send happy wishes to Pat. He's headed over to San Diego. This is going to be a ton of fun. We will miss you in Charlotte. And hit us up if you're going to Charlotte. Let's get together. Let's have a beer. Pete, I'd love to stop at Sycamore one of the days that you're down there. I'd love to make that a priority.
Let's do it. And let's shake them down about sponsoring these shows, man.
Yeah, we do. we do need to shake them down. But as always, please check out Too Deep. Please check out Sons of Saturday. Appreciate all of you who have rocked with us over this challenging but fun 2024 season, and we're looking forward to 2025. Next time we talk to you will be in the new year. So looking forward to it, fellas and Felinas. Have a good one. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid over New Year's or New Year's Eve, and enjoy the football games.
Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.